Will Bitcoin go way up in 2025 or crash in 2025? Here's how to know, and here's what the best experts on the topic are thinking right now. First of all, historically, Bitcoin has gone in a 4-year cycle. It always ends up way higher than it was before, and the lowest point in the low of the 4-year cycle ends up being also way higher. So, for example, I'll give you just the highs. The highs were $32, then $1,200, then $69,000, then $19,000, then $69,000, then 123, which is the cycle we're in right now. So again, if you look at just the highs for the 4-year cycles, it was 32, 1,200, 19,000, 69,000, and 123,000. If you look at just the lows of each cycle, which the lows obviously followed each of those numbers, the first low was $2, then it was $92, then it was $3,200, then it was $15,500. Okay, and so I'm going to string those together and say, and so in 2011, Bitcoin went from 5 cents up to $32, then crashed to $2. Then it went up to $1,200 and crashed to $92. Then it went up to $19,000 and crashed to $3,200. Good evening. Then it went up to $69,000, crashed to $15,500. And here we are, it recently went to $123,000. So again, if you look at just the highs, it goes up, 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 up. If you look at just the lows, it goes up, 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 up. So the question is, and historically that's been 3 up years and 1 down year. So the first years leading up to 2013 were up years. 2014 was a down year. Then 15, 16, 17 were up years. 18 was a down year. 19, 20, and 21 were up years. 22 was a down year. 23, 24, and 25 have all been up years. And so the question is, wait, if you notice a pattern here, you might be thinking, what happens next? Is the price going to crash in 2026, which would keep the 4-year pattern going? First of all, nobody can agree on this. Most of the best experts think that we are past the 4-year cycle, meaning the level of adoption of Bitcoin is high enough now that we're just not going to get this 4-year adoption cycle, which is natural for technologies. Each different technology goes in different cycles. Bitcoin, for a variety of technical reasons, tends to be in a 4-year cycle. Other technologies happen to be in a sort of a different cycle. But the adoption of any technology or anything, frankly, happens in cycles for reasons. If you want to understand why, read The Bullish Case for Bitcoin by Vijay Boyapati, which I would recommend anybody at this point in Bitcoin's life. That's like the best book you can read if you want to understand why Bitcoin behaves the way it does. The Bullish Case for Bitcoin by Vijay Boyapati. Okay, it's on Audible, it's on Amazon, it's on Kindle, it's on everything. Okay, so most people think there is between a 51% and a 60% chance that we are past those 4-year cycles, which means we are going to grind up and Bitcoin will bore us to death on the way to $1 million. Meaning we grind up 20 or 30%, hang out there for a couple weeks or a couple months, grind up 20 or 30%, and then then we hang out there for some series of months. Then we grind up 20 or 30%, then we hang out there for a series of months, grind up again. So that is a very boring way of getting to $1 million, but it also is an amazing way of getting to $1 million because you don't have these crazy epic downturns. Now that doesn't mean so far since 2022, the last really bear market, meaning down market, pessimistic market, we have had 2 downturns that were between 30 and 33%. Let's call them 32%. Let's call it 33 because that's like 1/3 of 100. So we've had 2 downturns of 33% since 2022. But the other 4-year cycle downturns were much larger. Back in the early days, it was a 94 after 2011, it was a 94% correction. After 2013, it was a 93% correction. After 2017, it was a 84% correction. And after 2021, it was a 77.5% correction. And these numbers are all off the top of my head, but they're all accurate. So anyway, most people think those sort of corrections are done. And in order to get those sort of corrections, you have to have a huge run up in the price before the correction. That's the way that works. The term is the bull authors the bear. Authors as in A-U-T-H-O-R-S. Authors as in is the author of the bear. So the reason you had those major price corrections in the past of 94%, 93%, 84%, and 77.5% was because right before that, there was a massive increase in the price. So before that 94% correction, the price went from 5 cents to $32. That's like a ridiculously insane run. And then before the 93% correction, the price went from $2 to $1,200. That's crazy. So of course there's going to be a correction after that. Okay, before the 84% price correction, the price went from $92 up to $19,000. Of course you're going to get a price correction. And before the 77.5% price correction, the price went from $3,200 up to $69,000. Again, a huge price increase. So the bull market authors the bear market. And that means you can tell how big of a bear market we're going to have based on the bull market that happens before it. So if somebody said, what is the biggest price correction you think Bitcoin would ever do off of today's price? I would say, I don't think it's going to be that big because we haven't had this crazy bull run leading up to it. Now, obviously, we've gone from a low of $15,500 in 2022 up to $123,000. So you're thinking, well, that's a huge rise, but that rise happened relatively slowly. Unlike in the past, where those rises were just this epic run that happened in a series of months. In this case, we've gone higher, but we've gone higher little by little, slowly by slowly. I mean, we've just basically ground higher. And when you grind higher, the marketplace has a lot more time to adjust to the different price points of Bitcoin, meaning the probability that you get a big price correction is lower. So if we continue to grind higher and Bitcoin bores us to death on the way to $1 million, there probably won't be a huge bear market. That doesn't mean we won't get price corrections of 33% or even 50% along the way, but it's highly unlikely we get a 77.5% price correction like back in 2022, which was caused by the blowing up of, like every stupid company that did stupid things with crypto, not Bitcoin, but crypto, they all blew up at the same time in the second half of 2022. And it just dragged the market way down. And then the cherry on top was Sam Bankman-Fried and his blow up of FTX. So if we don't have something like that, then it's unlikely that we will end up with a huge, bear market. So again, between 51 and 60% probabilities is what the best, most informed people are saying, that we're past those cycles and it's going to climb, boring us to death on the way to $1 million, which leaves somewhere between a 40% chance and a 49% chance that we will get a big parabolic rise. If we do get a big parabolic rise, what that looks like is the end of this year, in a very few short months, we get this epic tear where Bitcoin goes from $114,000 where it is today, all the way to $180 or $190 or $210 or $220,000 in a very short period of time. Like in the matter of 6 weeks or 8 weeks or, something like that, you get this huge rise, adding more than $1 trillion to the price of Bitcoin, the total price of Bitcoin, because there's 21 million coins. So the value of all the Bitcoin in the world is the current price, 114,000 times 21 million, which right now puts the market capitalization at like 2.3 trillion or something like that. So if you go up 50,000 a coin, you're adding $1 trillion to the market capitalization. And that's a lot of money. It takes a lot of money to add $1 trillion to the price of anything. So the best way to know what's going to happen next, or at least the probabilities, is to follow James Check, who goes by Checkmate. And on Twitter, he's either Checkmate or Checkmate with a Y. And he has a subscription service that charges $29 a month. And he is by far the best commentator and analyst about why markets behave they do, the way they do, the human psychology behind every move of the market, and what it is what is likely to happen next based on how things are playing out. So I follow James Chek. He is my Sherpa that helps me understand what's coming next. He is the one who coined the term, I think, the bull authors the bear. And he is just by far the best person to give insights on what's going on, how much profit are people in that are in Bitcoin, how much profit are they taking. And of course, it makes no sense to take profit. 1 second here. In my opinion, it makes no sense to get... Sorry, my internet went out for quite a few minutes there, and now it's back on. So this video seems like a live video, but it's actually recorded in two totally different segments because my cellular went out. So here we are again, but this is totally, a different time of day, different location, but hopefully Facebook Live will string the two videos together. We'll hope for the best. Anyway, so James Chek authored the terminology of the bull authors the bear, meaning you can tell how big of a correction's coming based on how epic or unsustainable a price rise was before it happened. And James Chek also is constantly following, for example, how much money is coming into and out of Bitcoin, how much unrealized profit people are in, meaning all the people who hold Bitcoin, how much total up are they on their investment? Because statistically, the more people are up on their investment, the more likely they are to sell their investment. So he tracks all of that. And then he also tracks how much profit taking, again, assuming you want to call it profit taking, I would call it, stupidity of moving, Bitcoin into US dollars. But obviously, if you're using it to improve your life or your family's life or, go on a nice vacation, great, good for you. I have no problem with converting Bitcoin into things that improve the life of you or your family. I would just never convert Bitcoin into US dollars with the intent of holding US dollars, because that makes zero sense to ever convert something that is scarce into something that is not scarce. The goal is obviously to end up with more of what is scarce, not what is less scarce. So to recap here, and then I'll add a few more details. To recap, Bitcoin has gone through 4 major cycles, 4-year cycles. Most people think that those 4-year cycles are over, but only by, 51 to 60%. So they barely lean in favor of the 4-year cycles being over. You will know if we are having 4-year cycles because if we get a radical increase in the price of Bitcoin, in the second half of this year, or the first half of 2026 or whatever, actually at any point, if we get a huge run up in the price of Bitcoin that makes the chart for 2025 or 2026 look like the charts from 2013, or actually, so if you look at the chart for 2025, it doesn't look anything like 2011 or 2013 or 2017 or 2021. But if we get a huge rise that makes 2026 or 2025 or 2026 look like those huge rises in 2011, 2013, 2017, and 2021, then yes, we will get a price correction. All right, so let's talk about, actually, I'm going to do a separate video talking about why the price is correct after a huge bull run. So I will probably do that video next, but let me think if there's anything else I can do on here. So again, James Chek for $29 a month is by far the best person to follow if you're super into Bitcoin. He is the only